September 7th, 1940. The roof of the Air Ministry, Whitehall, London, 1700 hours. The sky over London is not grey, it is a bruised, violent purple, stained by the smoke of 1,000 fires rising from the East End. The sound is not a noise, it is a physical pressure. The drone of 300 Heinkel, He-111 bombers, escorted by 600 Messerschmitt fighters, creates a harmonic vibration that rattles the teacups in the basement shelters 3 floors down. Standing on the roof, ignoring the air raid sirens wailing like banshees across the capital, is Alistair Finch. Finch is not a soldier. He wears a tweed suit that has seen better days and spectacles that are constantly sliding down a nose, reddened by the September wind. He is a civilian structural engineer, a man who spends his days calculating wind shear on suspension bridges. But right now, he is watching the systematic murder of his city. "They're coming in too low," Finch mutters to himself, gripping the parapet. "They're practically sightseeing." Next to him stands Wing Commander Harrington, a man whose uniform is impeccable but whose face is grey with helplessness. "The 3.7-inch guns can't track them, Finch," Harrington shouts over the roar of the engines. "They're at 6,000 feet. Too low for the heavy flak, too high for the Bofors. They're right in the slot." Below them, the anti-aircraft batteries of London open fire. It looks impressive, flashes of light, puffs of black smoke, but Finch knows the math. He knows the ballistics. The shells are exploding 5 seconds too late, or 1,000 feet too high. The German pilots, arrogant and untouched, are simply opening their bomb bay doors and letting gravity do the work. Whomp, whomp, whomp. The impacts walk across the docklands. Silvertown is burning. The Woolwich Arsenal is burning. "It's a shooting gallery," Finch says, turning to the wing commander. "You need to force them up. If you don't force them up, there won't be a London left by Tuesday." "And how do you propose we do that?" Harrington snaps, his patience fraying. "We don't have enough Spitfires. We don't have enough guns. Unless you have a way to make the air solid, we are losing this fight." "I told you 6 months ago," Finch says, his voice quiet but hard. "I don't want to make the air solid, I want to make it dangerous." Harrington rolls his eyes. "Oh, not this again. The balloons. The sausage squad. Finch, look at the sky. This is modern warfare. You want to fight the Luftwaffe with carnival decorations?" The argument takes Finch back to a sterile conference room in February 1940, 6 months prior. The room had been filled with the brass of the War Office, men with chests full of ribbons from the Somme and Ypres. Finch had stood at the front, a civilian interloper, pointing to a diagram of a bloated, silver shape. "The LZ low-zone barrage balloon," Finch had explained, tapping the blackboard, "filled with hydrogen, tethered by a steel cable. We fly them in a perimeter around the city." "To scare the pilots?" a general had scoffed, lighting a cigar. "With a big floating toy?" "To kill them," Finch corrected. "It's not the balloon, General, it's the cable. A high-tensile steel wire. If a wing hits it at 200 miles per hour, the wire shears through the aluminum spar like a cheese slicer. The wing snaps. The plane falls." The room had erupted in polite, derisive laughter. "Mr. Finch," the general had sighed, "Germany has the fastest aircraft in the world. They have radar-guided sights. And you think they're going to be stopped by a string? It's ridiculous. It's a waste of rubber and hydrogen we need for industry. We need guns, big, loud guns that the public can hear." "The guns miss," Finch had argued, his face flushing. "The guns are active defence. They rely on aiming. A balloon is passive. It is a denial of space. If we float 2,000 of these cables over London, we create a steel forest. The pilots won't fly through it. They'll have to fly over it. And if they fly over it? Then they are at 15,000 feet, Finch said. Their bombing accuracy drops by 60%. They can't hit a factory, they hit a field, they hit nothing." Denied, the general had stamped the file. Ridiculous. Back on the roof, September 7th, 1940. A Heinkel screams overhead, so low Finch can see the black crosses on the wings. A stick of bombs falls toward the East End. A moment later, a plume of fire erupts from a gasworks. The heat hits them on the roof. A sudden, dry gust. "They're targeting the power stations," Harrington yells. "If they hit Battersea, the grid goes down." Finch grabs the wing commander by the lapels of his uniform. It is a breach of protocol, a civilian assaulting an officer, but the world is burning, and the rulebook burned 10 minutes ago. They are hitting the power stations because they can see them, Harrington. They are flying low and slow because they aren't afraid of your guns. You have 500 balloons in storage at Cardington. They're sitting in crates while London burns. Harrington looks at the firestorm consuming the docks. He looks at the pathetic puffs of flak harmlessly dotting the sky. He realises that the ridiculous option is the only option left. They aren't ready, Harrington stammers. We don't have the crews. The winches are... I have civilian crews on standby, Finch lies. He doesn't have them, but he knows he can find them. Old men, women of the WWII, teenagers too young for the draft. Give me the order and I'll put a steel fence around this city by sunset tomorrow. Harrington pulls away, straightening his jacket. He looks at the sky one last time. A Spitfire spirals down in flames, outmatched by the swarm of Messerschmitts. Do it, Harrington whispers. I need that in writing, Finch says. Do it, Harrington screams, the mask of the officer cracking. Get your bloody balloons, Finch. Fill the sky. Just stop them. Finch doesn't wait. He turns and runs for the stairwell. He has to make a phone call to the Royal Aircraft Establishment at Cardington. He has to mobilise a small army of civilians, engineers and volunteers. He has to prove that a bag of gas can stop a blitzkrieg. As he reaches the phone in the lobby, the building shakes from another impact. Dust falls from the ceiling, coating the receiver. Finch dials the operator. Get me balloon command, he barks. Priority 1. This is Operation Pegasus. The line clicks. A voice on the other end answers, sleepy and confused. Balloon command? Sir, the office is closed for the... Wake them up, Finch says, his voice trembling with adrenaline, and tell the gas plant to open the valves. We're going fishing. The scepticism is about to end. The experiment is about to begin. The Luftwaffe thinks the air over London belongs to them. Finch is about to introduce them to the lethal geometry of the wire. September 9th, 1940. Clapham Common, South London, 6:30 hours. The morning mist clings to the grass of Clapham Common, obscuring the devastation of the previous night. But the park, usually reserved for nannies pushing prams and old men walking terriers, has been transformed into a bizarre, muddy circus. Alistair Finch stands in the centre of a churned-up football pitch. His tweed suit is ruined, splattered with hydraulic fluid and mud up to the knees. He hasn't slept in 36 hours. Around him, the sausage squad is at work. Easy on the winch. She's bucking, shouts Corporal Sarah Miller, a 22-year-old WAF, Women's Auxiliary Air Force, with grease smeared across her forehead. She is hauling on a guide rope that is thicker than her wrist. Above them, a monstrosity rises. It is the LZ Mark V Barrage balloon. 62 feet long, 25 feet in diameter, filled with 19,000 cubic feet of hydrogen. It looks like a bloated silver elephant with fins. It is ridiculous. It wobbles in the wind. It looks less like a weapon of war and more like an escaped parade float. It looks like a giant maggot, Mr. Finch, Miller grunts, digging her heels into the turf as the balloon tugs upward, desperate to join the clouds. It's not a maggot, Corporal, Finch replies, checking the tension gauge on the Ford winch truck. It's a mine, a vertical mine. The brilliance of Finch's plan isn't the balloon itself. The balloon is just the lift mechanism. The weapon is the tether. It is a single, continuous strand of high-tensile steel wire. It is thin enough to be invisible at night, yet strong enough to slice through an aluminum aircraft wing like a hot knife through butter. Get her to 2,000 feet, Finch orders, and space them out. If the cables touch, they'll shear each other and we'll have a flaming Hindenburg on top of the terrified residents of Balham. By noon, the skyline of London has changed. From Hyde Park to the Docklands, 500 silver shapes hang in the sky. They look benign, bobbing gently. But beneath each one hangs a lethal, invisible curtain. September 10th, 1940. RAF Biggin Hill, Fighter Command Sector Station. Not everyone is happy about the silver sausages. Flight Lieutenant Rory McAllister kicks the tyre of his Spitfire, his face flushed with anger. He has just landed after a sortie against a swarm of Dorniers over the estuary. "You're mining the bloody sky, Finch," McAllister screams, spotting the engineer near the hangars, where a balloon crew is setting up a perimeter defence. Finch adjusts his glasses, unfazed. "We're denying airspace, Lieutenant." "You're denying me airspace." McAllister gestures wildly at the grey overcast. "It's hard enough to spot a Jerry in this soup without worrying about flying into a steel cheese slicer. I have to weave through your damn balloons to get a firing solution. If I hit one of those cables, I lose a wing. It doesn't care if I have a roundel or a swastika on the fuselage." "Then fly higher," Finch says calmly. "That's the point, Rory. We force them up. If they want to bomb the airfield, they have to do it from 15,000 feet. At that height, their accuracy drops. They miss the runway, they miss the hangars. You get to take off again tomorrow." McAllister stares at him, wiping oil from his hands. "It's suicide. You're asking us to fight in a cage." "I'm asking you to fight above the cage," Finch corrects. "Let the balloons catch the low flyers. You take the high ones." The pilot spits on the tarmac. "I hope you're right, Finch, because if I see one of my boys go down because he snagged a wire over Chelsea, I'm coming for you." September 11th, 1940. The skies over East London, 2300 hours. The Luftwaffe returns. This time it is Kampfgeschwader 55, the Grief Wing. They are flying Heinkel He 100s and 11s. The pilots are confident. For 3 days they have owned London. They know the anti-aircraft fire is inaccurate. They know the Spitfires struggle to find them in the dark. Oberleutnant Kurt Bremer pilots the lead Heinkel. He is a veteran of the Spanish Civil War and the invasion of France. He is relaxed. "Target is the West India docks," Bremer says over the intercom. "Drop altitude to 1,500 metres. Let's make sure we hit the warehouses." "Jawohl," the bombardier replies, descending. The Heinkel dips its nose. The engines drone, a steady rhythmic pulse. The city below is a patchwork of burning buildings and darkness. Bremer doesn't see the balloons. At night, the silver fabric is painted dark green on the top, blending with the ground, and light grey on the bottom, blending with the clouds. But the cables are needle-thin lines of darkness against the darkness. "Flak is light," the gunner reports. "It looks clear." "Steady," Bremer says. Bomb doors open. September 20th, 1940. Vannes-Mercon Airfield, occupied France. 1800 hours. The briefing room of Kampfgeschwader 55 is usually a place of arrogant confidence. The walls are lined with maps of London, marked with thick red crosses over the docks, the power stations and the factories. For weeks these men have flown with impunity, treating the Thames like their own personal navigation river. Tonight, the room smells of stale tobacco and fear. Oberst Colonel Alois Stoeckel stands at the podium. He taps a pointer against a new addition to the map, a shaded grey zone encircling the British capital. "Intelligence confirms the British have deployed a new defensive perimeter," Stoeckel says, his voice clipped. "Passive balloon barrage. Density is high. Cables are steel, unlit and lethal." A murmur runs through the room. These pilots have faced Spitfires. They have faced flak. They understand those threats. You can see a fighter. You can dodge a shell burst. But a wire? A wire hanging in the dark is a ghost. It is a probability calculation, not a fight. "Lieutenant Bremer's aircraft was lost to a cable strike last week," Stoeckel continues, his eyes scanning the faces of his men. "The wing was sheared at the root. There were no survivors." He pauses, letting the silence settle. Therefore, effective immediately, the minimum bombing altitude for all Heinkel squadrons over London is raised to 5,500 metres, 18,000 feet. 5,500, a young pilot protests from the back. "Oberst, at that altitude, with the crosswinds over the channel, we cannot guarantee accuracy. The bomb sites will do their best," Stoeckel snaps. "If you fly at 2,000 metres, you are flying into a meat grinder. The British have turned the air into a minefield. You will fly over it or you will be court-martialed. Is that clear?" The pilots nod. They are relieved. They would rather miss their target from 3 miles up than risk being sliced open by a silent wire at rooftop level. The psychological victory is already won. The Luftwaffe, the most terrifying air force in history, has just been bullied by a fleet of inflatable sausages. October 15th, 1940. The skies over London, 2,200 hours. At 18,000 feet, the war is a different beast. Inside the cockpit of a Heinkel He-111, the temperature is 30 degrees below zero. Frost encrusts the inside of the canopy. The crew are not conquerors. They are shivering, miserable men huddled in sheepskin jackets, sucking oxygen from rubber hoses. Target area approaching. The bombardier wheezes over the intercom. Battersea Power Station. He peers through the Lotfe 7 bomb site. But down below, London is just a smudge of grey and black. The blackout is effective, but the altitude is the real enemy. At this height, the wind is a gale-force river. A shift of 10 knots in the wind speed can throw a bomb half a mile off course. The bombardier tries to compensate, twisting the dials with numb fingers. "Drift is bad," he mutters. "I can't lock the station." "Drop them," the pilot commands, watching the fuel gauge. "Just drop them and let's get out of here." The bomb bay doors open. The stick of high explosives falls away, disappearing into the dark. 3 miles below, the bombs do not hit the Battersea Power Station. They do not hit the rail yards. They scream past the balloon barrage, missing the cables by thousands of feet, and slam into a row of terraced houses in a residential suburb 3 miles west of the target. It is a tragedy for the families in those houses. It is terror. But militarily, it is a failure. The power station keeps generating electricity. The factories keep turning out Spitfires. The docks keep unloading convoys. By forcing the bombers up, the balloons have traded precision for randomness. They have turned a surgical strike into a clumsy bludgeoning. And while a bludgeoning hurts, it does not kill the city. November 2nd, 1940. The Air Ministry, Whitehall. Underground plotting room. Alistair Finch stands before a massive map table. It is covered in coloured pins. Red pins for bomb impacts, blue pins for balloon locations. Wing Commander Harrington is there, holding a cup of tea that actually isn't shaking for once. "Look at the dispersion," Finch says, pointing to the cluster of red pins. In September, the impacts were tight. They were hitting the dock gates. They were hitting the pumping stations. Now, look at October. He traces a finger over the map. The red pins are scattered like buckshot. They are all over the suburbs, the parks, the empty marshland. "The circular error probable has tripled," Finch says, the satisfaction evident in his voice. "They aren't aiming anymore, Harrington. They're dumping." Harrington nods slowly. "We're still taking heavy casualties, Finch. Civilians are dying every night." "I know," Finch says softly, "but the city is surviving. The infrastructure is holding. If they had kept hitting the water mains and the power grid with the accuracy they had in September, we would have had to evacuate London by now. The balloons bought us the margin of error we needed to stay in the fight." Harrington looks at the civilian engineer. He looks at the tweed suit, now rumpled and stained with coffee. He realises that this man, with his slide rule and his ridiculous gas bags, has done more to protect the capital than a dozen anti-aircraft batteries. "You were right," Harrington admits. "I thought it was a circus act. But it's a ceiling. You gave them a ceiling they're afraid to touch." December 29th, 1940. St. Paul's Cathedral, London. The night of the second Great Fire of London. The Luftwaffe sends everything they have. Incendiaries rain down like fiery confetti. But as the fires rage around St. Paul's, something strange happens. A photographer from the Daily Mail stands on a rooftop on Fleet Street. He is framing a shot of the dome of St. Paul's, standing defiant amidst the smoke. In the foreground of the viewfinder, silhouetted against the orange glow of the burning city, is the dark, bulbous shape of a barrage balloon. It floats serenely, tethered to the ground, a silent guardian watching over the cathedral. The image, when it is published the next morning, becomes iconic. The balloons are no longer Finch's folly. They are the nursemaids of London. People start to feel affection for them. They give them names. Blossom, Goering's nightmare, the fat lady. When a balloon breaks its tether in a storm and drifts away, children cry. When a crew winches one down for maintenance in a park, crowds gather to pat its silver flank as if it were a loyal dog. Finch stands in the crowd at Clapham Common, watching a crew haul Blossom down for a gas refill. A little girl, holding her mother's hand, points up at the massive swaying creature. "Is that a monster, Mummy?" she asks. "No, darling," the mother says, tightening her scarf against the winter wind. "That's a friend. It scares the bad planes away." Finch smiles. He puts his hands in his pockets and turns to walk back to his office. The war is far from over. The V-1 buzz bombs are years away. The V-2 rockets are still on a drawing board in Peenemünde. But for now, the immediate threat of precision destruction has been blunted. The Luftwaffe has been forced to respect the physics of a wire. The ridiculous idea has become the shield of the capital. Finch looks up one last time. The sky is grey, heavy with winter clouds. But hanging there, by the hundreds, are the silver sentinels. They are ugly, they are cumbersome, they are absurd, and they are the reason London is still standing.